Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. We are getting back from those two guests leaving us. Thank you again to Faith James and Andrew Tate for joining us today. It was a huge help to us and a great conversation, I think. I am praying that there were no technical difficulties on that. If there were, I am very sorry, but hopefully there weren't, and hopefully we can be ready to go from the future here getting guests on. But let's talk about pro days. There has been tons of stuff happening around the country with pro days, tons of teams, tons of players showing out their ability. And the biggest ones this week, in my opinion, were LSU was a huge one, Michigan, Washington, and then Tennessee, just for fun, we'll throw in there as well. Also, North Carolina also had theirs this week. So tons of big-time quarterbacks were on display this week. And let's start in Baton Rouge and then kind of make our way around the country. Malik Neighbors put on an absolute show. This dude is insane. He ran a 4.35 40-yard dash, 35-inch vertical, showed off just his obvious ability. I think if you watched any of LSU football last year, you were wondering who that kid wearing number 8 was, and this is that kid. He is absolutely insane. He came in at 6 foot 190, so roughly the size that everyone thought he was going to be. There were a number of people that left that pro day saying he's the guy, saying he's the number one wide receiver. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. not working out probably opened that door a little bit, and Malik Neighbors took full advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were some teams across the league that had him as their number one guy going into this next year. But let's talk about the big dog. Let's talk about the guy that everyone was there to see. Let's talk about Jaden Daniels. He was someone that people, I think the biggest worry about him coming into today actually was what was his weight going to be. He declined to weigh at the combine, I'm pretty sure, and he came in at 6'3", 210, and that is huge news for him. I think that is a perfect size for what you want him to do. Maybe 5 more pounds wouldn't hurt, but I think there were a lot of people that thought they were going to see him somewhere in the 202, 205 region, and that would have been a big problem. So I think having him where he is absolutely huge. He was near perfect on the day, did miss a couple of passes early. He definitely was started a little bit cold, but heated up very quickly and became the player that we've gotten used to seeing because he was ripping the ball all over the field, show his incredibly high upside. Did miss a couple of deep balls, which is a little bit interesting given, his ability to throw those deep balls early on in his or last season at LSU. So that one was a little interesting, but at the end of the day, for the most part, he was money. His velocity was great, apparently, from the people there watching. So huge day for Jaden Daniels. I think he's holding pat right now at QB2, but there has been some chatter about this next guy that we're going to talk about, J.J. McCarthy. Michigan's pro day was just a star-studded show, and it makes sense. 18 guys going to the draft this year, tons of guys to look forward to seeing. I mean, on either side of the ball, there are tons of guys to watch, but there were 7 head coaches there, 9 GMs, 7 offensive coordinators, 3 defensive coordinators, and every position coach you could think of was there in Ann Arbor for this one. And obviously, a lot of the guys were there to watch J.J. McCarthy. He weighed in at 215, which was not what I thought he weighed. I talked about, I think earlier this week, I was talking about JJ and thought that his size would be the biggest knock on him. He is a little bit on the shorter side, but at the end of the day, he is, as tall and bigger than Jaden Daniels. So if that's your knock, then no longer a knock for me, that's for sure. But lots of eyes on him, obviously. Jim Harbaugh called it the best pro day he's ever seen, and he's seen a lot of them. Obviously, this is his former quarterback, so definitely a little bit more partial towards him, but at the end of the day, I trust Jim Harbaugh when he talks about football. So JJ apparently met with the Commanders, Patriots, and Seahawks, which is very interesting because the rumors to the Commanders have been very real. It seems like they are looking at him as possibly the number 2 pick. Patriots hold the number 3 pick right now. I don't know if they're working out some type of trade. I know that they have been open to that over the last couple of weeks, but that's very interesting. And then the Seahawks is the one that I'm really interested in, partly because he has Geno Smith there. Geno Smith is the starting quarterback for Seattle. I don't think that's changing anytime soon necessarily. So likely would be sitting if you went to Seattle, but they seem to be very impressed with him. If he were to drop later into the first round, maybe they take a flyer on him and set up their post-Geno Smith era in Seattle. But let's get to the other guys in Michigan jerseys. Blake Corum had a good day, showed off his athletic ability, his receiving ability, which was something that I think teams were a little skeptical on. He was more of a run it downhill type of back, but showing all of that athletic and receiving ability he has is huge. And then Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson had really good days as well. Two very talented wide receivers. Roman Wilson is someone that I really like a lot, is an absolute tactician and does really just everything as simple and nice as you could possibly want it to be done. So very excited for him. I think one little weird thing from this workout was Mike Sandristrow, the very talented corner, mainly played nickel for Michigan this past year, ran wide receiver routes during this one. He started his career at Michigan as a wide receiver, so not crazy necessarily that he did this. Maybe some teams asked him to do it, although at the next level, he is almost definitely a nickelback and almost definitely will be a big-time player for someone. Let's move on over to Seattle, Washington, though. They had 19 players in their pro day, a huge day for this program when you talk about recruiting and you talk about all that type of stuff. Obviously gives them a leg up when you get to point to all these guys that got to take part in your pro day and be a big part of it. Obviously, Michael Penix was the main event. He was someone that everyone was watching, and the dude is an athlete. That is something that some people were a little bit worried about, his mobility, his athleticism to extend plays. That is no longer a worry after this week. I can assure you that. He ran a 4.46 40-yard dash, 36.5-inch vert. He was just off the charts. He did pretty much everything perfectly. His passing drills were just awesome. Roma Dunze did not work out. The other wide receivers, though, Jalen Polk and Jalen McMillan, looked really smooth going through workouts. I think Polk was a very underrated guy in this group, is super talented, and if you pick him up as a late-round pickup, I don't think you'd be upset at all. I think he's just incredible. And then let's go over to North Carolina. They have, obviously, Drake May. That is the main event. That's the guy that everyone's there to see. But honestly, I think there would be a number of people that would want to see Omarion Hampton work out if they could, but he is still 1 year away from eligibility. I think he would have been one of the top running backs in this class if he was able to declare. But for right now, let's talk about Drake May. The dude just ripped. That's the way he plays football. He is a very much the gunslinger type guy who is going to sling the ball downfield, is going to trust himself, throw off platform, do a number of things that some people might not love you doing if you're the quarterback coach, but he's got the ability. There's no two ways about that. Did start a little bit slow, missed some guys where he probably shouldn't have, but at the end of the day, had a very good day, threw a beautiful 65-yard pass off balance on the absolute money. So he's one of those guys that you know the ability's there, you know the arm talent there is there. The question is decision-making and being able to read NFL defenses, and that will come with time, I think. There's obviously some worry about that, but it doesn't look like he, as of right now, is going to be drafted into a position to start right away. Now, if he goes to the Patriots, that could be a real reality, but at the end of the day, I think he's someone that would hugely benefit from sitting for a year or two, understanding the playbook, understanding how to read defenses a little bit better, and then jumping onto the scene and showing off this remarkable ability that he obviously has. He reminds me a lot of Justin Herbert in the way that he goes about his business and kind of the way he plays quarterback in a lot of ways. And then finally, let's talk about Tennessee because Joe Milton put on a absolute highlight reel. The dude is probably the most fun person to watch throw in shorts and a t-shirt. He does just insane things. He has a rocket connected to the right side of his torso, and he uses it whenever he wants. It's just remarkable to see the ball jump out of this kid's hands. He elicited a ton of oh my gods from the crowd, and it's fairly clear that I've been very honest with what I think about Joe Milton. I don't necessarily think he's an NFL quarterback. I think he lacks the changeup that you're going to need at the next level. I think he makes some decisions that are pretty questionable, has trouble reading defenses at times, but at the end of the day, he is doing everything in his power to show off the ability that he has, show off the high ceiling he has, and I think for that reason, he has won over someone. I don't know exactly who that is, and I don't know exactly when they'll pull the trigger on him, but I think he will get drafted. I think someone will be sitting there saying the quote unquote "I can fix him" type of mentality that a lot of GMs and coaches have when drafting players. So I think Joe Milton is a questionable quarterback that has definitely some big old holes in his game, but when you get him out on an open field and he can just sling the ball around, there's nothing much like it. So I think he's a very interesting guy. There's a ton of very interesting players that will be going through pro days over the next couple of weeks, so we will definitely keep updating you as we go along. Tons have already passed, but there's still some to come. And then we're kind of in the part of the season where we're gearing up towards draft. We're gearing up towards the big day in Indianapolis, I believe, this year. And very excited for that day. It's always really, really fun to see who gets taken number one overall. I think we know who that's going to be this time around. But it's always fun leading up to the draft, and we're getting closer every single day. So I will keep you updated with all the happenings there. But we're going to take our final break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about spring practice intel. There's been a ton of spring practices going on around the country, and some guys that are standing out or not so standing out. But we will talk about that right when we get back from this break.